So there was a lot going on in the world of the New York Giants last week as they released quarterback Daniel Jones in what was a shocking move. And now today, news broke that Daniel Jones has signed with the Minnesota Vikings. Joining me to talk about that and much more is the sports columnist for the New York Post. His name is Mark Cannizzaro. Good friend, joins me now. Mark, what's going on?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Dex?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Can't complain. Want to talk to you about this move for Daniel Jones. What do you make of Daniel Jones moving to the Minnesota Vikings, and how does this signing impact his career trajectory following his release from the Giants?
Well, Dex, I've got to feel like that Daniel feels like he's got the get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, he's leaving a two-win team to a team that's headed to the playoffs. Whether he gets a chance to play this year or not, I'm not sure. But, obviously, he immediately elevates the Vikings' backup quarterback situation behind Sam Darnold. Where that goes next year is it's a fascinating dynamic because obviously McCarthy is the Vikings' future. Obviously, he's had the meniscus this year and he's been out all year. And, the general feeling is the Vikings are going to go to him next year. The question becomes, how far does Sam Darnold take the Vikings in the postseason? If he brings into an NFC Championship game or even the Super Bowl, can you imagine them not bringing him back? If they just get in the playoffs and maybe win a one game and out, Sam's probably going to get some big offers next year and move on, and that makes Daniel the veteran, perhaps bridge quarterback next year as McCarthy gets acclimated, or maybe he's just that veteran backup in case McCarthy doesn't work out. But it's going to be it's an interesting choice. The reports came out immediately when Daniel was released that he wanted to be with a winning team. The obvious choice would have been to go to the Raiders, who need a quarterback right now and very well may need one next year. But if he does that, he's kind of going to one losing franchise to another, that's also like the Giants, or maybe we don't know what the Giants situation is, but certainly the Raiders, it's by all reports and accounts, look like they're going to be looking for a new coach next year. So there's a lot of instability there. So I think this is a great landing spot. Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic offensive mind and quarterback whisperer, if you will, a quarterback coach. It didn't work out for Daniel with Brian Daboll, who we all thought was a quarterback whisperer and still may be, but it just didn't work out with the Giants. So this is a great landing spot for him. He's 27 years old. I think Daniel is a very, very good football player. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. And I'm not sure that he's ever going to be a really good starter in the league, but that's just my opinion.
All right, so that's your opinion there. And what I do find interesting here, Mark, right, is you have in Minnesota now two QBs that were formerly in New York, and they did not cut it in New York, right? And Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones now will be the backup here. Do you think, I'm not wishing injury, but if something happens to Sam Darnold, how do you think he fits in the Minnesota offensive system, considering they have weapons like Justin Jefferson? What do you see as fit there if he is thrust into a situation where he has to start?
I think Daniel will do just fine because of the fact that, O'Connell's system is terrific. Obviously, the Giants didn't have a Justin Jefferson to throw to, and nor did Sam Darnold before he got here. So there's no accident that he's excelled the way he has. Not to take anything away from, how he's played, because he's had a really good season, but, he was never thrown to that kind of receiving talent in any of his previous stops, the Jets, Carolina, whatever, right? So, I think that Daniel it's a good fit for him as a backup. He's, Nick Mullins is their backup right now. Jones is certainly more accomplished than Mullins is. So, I don't, listen, hopefully Sam doesn't get hurt. We don't want that to happen, to him or anybody. And, he's really carved out a pretty cool story. If anything, what Darnold has done here, Dexter, is he's shown, the way for a guy like Daniel Jones, as has a Baker Mayfield, and there's some other, examples around the league that, because you fail in your first place or even your second place, it doesn't mean you're done. So, that's certainly a path that, that Daniel can take.
Yeah, definitely one he can look at. There's a bunch of examples you mentioned there. Geno Smith's another person you could include in there. All those quarterbacks have a little bit in common in terms of playing in New York that we just mentioned, except for Baker Mayfield. But looking back at Jones's time with the Giants, how would you evaluate his tenure? Do you think he can find success either here in Minnesota or someplace else? Do you think that's possible for him?
I think it is. I mean, again, you look at these guys. You mentioned Geno, who the Jets are going to see this weekend. I'll be covering that game. There's examples out there. I feel like, I believe in Dayball, and I think he's a really good offensive mind and a good coach. And I just, if it didn't work for Daniel under Brian, I'm just not so sure where it's going to work. If that makes any sense, not that it can't. And again, I have a lot of respect for Kevin in Minnesota and what he's done. He's a tremendous mind, offensive mind, and has a great system. Also has Justin Jefferson. But there's no reason Daniel can't. He's only 27 years old. As I said, he is a really good football player. This guy, is a two-way player in terms of the way he, uses his legs. It just seemed like watching the Giants games, he just wasn't seeing the field well. He wasn't seeing open receivers, and is that going to change in Minnesota? I don't know. Maybe it will when he has a Justin Jefferson to throw through to, who he can just maybe throw the ball up at, and the guy's going to make, 80-yard catches. But, it's still early days for him. He's 27 years old. He's only been in one place in his career for 5+ years. So, I just don't see him being a top echelon starting quarterback in the league. I just don't. Can he start somewhere? Of course he can. He started for the Giants for, more than 5 years now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what goes on for Daniel Jones moving forward. Last thing for me, Mark, going back to the Giants, how do you think, because this is the question that Giants fans want to know, how do you think they plan to address the quarterback position moving forward? Is this something they need to address immediately in terms of this offseason, or do they want to build the talent around the team and maybe think about it a year plus down the road? How do you think they plan to address that position?
They absolutely, positively have to address that in the draft. And listen, if they're going to keep Brian Daboll's never had his own quarterback since they hired him, right? They've kept Jones. He did well the first year with Daniel, and then it hasn't worked the last couple of years. I think that what John Mara wants to do and the Giants want to do is to bring their own young quarterback in. They're going to have they're picking right now number 2 in the draft order. I don't expect that to change by much by the end of the season, maybe 3 at the worst, could be 1. So they should have a chance at one of the top quarterbacks, coming out. And, this is an opportunity for Daboll to do what he did, in molding his own quarterback the way they did, in Buffalo, with Josh Allen. That was always kind of the plan. The plan was really that maybe he could Daniel Jones was a little bit of like Josh Allen, and he certainly physically he had that look, but it just didn't work out. But the Giants, they can't stand pat a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. I mean, they have a number 3 quarterback that's gotten hurt now in DeVito, and now their number 2 is going to likely start in Dallas tomorrow in Drew Lock. So, yeah, they have to address it without question, and they've got to do it, in April when that draft comes.
And that's what Giants fans want to hear. They want that quarterback position to be addressed immediately. We'll see what happens there. But for now, Daniel Jones left the Giants last week, was released, now signed with the Minnesota Vikings here on Wednesday, right before the Thanksgiving holiday. That is Mark Cannizzaro, sports columnist for the New York Post. Mark, I appreciate the time. Have yourself a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will talk soon.
Thanks, Dex. Talk to you soon.